Councillor Buchanan? I'm not seeing you present. I can see that we have present today Councillors Dewar, Donnelly, Fulton, Gowland. Councillor Handybode? Not seeing you present. Councillor Kerr was having problems joining the meeting, so I'll keep an eye for Councillor Kerr joining. I have apologies for Councillor Lockhart and for Councillor McDougall, and I can see that Councillor Mars has joined as a substitute for Councillor McDougall. Also in attendance today is Councillor Fagan and the Chief Executive. We have a number of officers present and colleagues from Audit Scotland. With that, I'll pass back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth Ann. Can I also remind everyone that after following this meeting, the Risk and Audit, there will be a members' awareness session on the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee, just to remind everyone. Thank you. I'll ask for declarations of interest. No declarations of interest. I'll move to item 2, minutes of previous meeting, and I don't have any. Anyone get any points on those minutes? No. Item 3.
Can we approve the minute?
I'll approve the minutes. Can I ask for a seconder, please? Can I ask for a seconder of the minutes? Thank you.
Yep, I'll second them.
Thank you. Thank you, Alistair. Item 3, good governance update and significance governance areas Q2 progress report, and I'll move to Ian Strachan to speak to that paper.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. So this report, it's our standard update on the Council's annual governance arrangements that we bring at this time of the year, including the Q2 update on significant governance areas. As part of this, members will remember, we do an annual review of the Council's governance arrangements and the local code of corporate governance. The slightly revised code is attached to Appendix 2. There's some slight amendments as noted at 5.2 there in connection with some of the policies and the like that are referred to. Otherwise, there's no changes. We also include at Appendix 3 the Q2 update on the significant governance areas that were highlighted in the annual governance statement for the 23-24 financial year, and there's some officer commentary on those. And what we're asking the committee to approve today is that the findings from the annual compliance check against the local code of corporate governance be noted, that the updated local code of corporate governance be approved, and that progress against these significant governance areas in Appendix 3 be noted. Some colleagues have come along in case there are any questions around the significant governance area update, but happy to take any questions, Chair.
Any questions to Ian on that report? No. Julia. Yes, Julia.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. If I just offer them both at one time, I think it saves time. On page 41 of the report, the financial challenges to the Council are noted. The budget gap of 16.455 million for this year. Could I seek clarity of why the full context of the probable outturn understand of 13.8 million is not included in that report, just for the full context of this year's situation? Also on page 47 of the report, I very much welcome the noting of work streams of a commissioning plan, a long-term estate strategy, and an agreed financial relationship between the Council and SLLC. I'm aware, as an elected member, of the session that took place in December last year, but I still remain unclear on the timescales for completion of these work streams and the nature of the decision-making process between the Council and SLLC. And in fact, as an alio, decisions are taken out with the remit of most council members and are confidential. Could the business plan of SLLC be circulated to elected members of SLC and be added to this item's work streams, please?
Is it me?
Thanks, Councillor Mars, for your questions. In relation to your first one around the information around the budget gap and the probable outturn, this report reflects a position that we reported on the 13th of November. Our probable outturn was only reported recently. So as we go through the process around the governance statement, we can update with decisions that are taken as part of the budget as well, because that will happen in the next couple of weeks anyway. So this just reflects the point as at the 13th of November.
Okay.
In relation to the work streams on leisure, I can update to say that the March Executive Committee will get an update around both the commissioning piece of work on SLLC and also on the estates review, which encompasses leisure as well as other council assets as well.
Thank you, Jackie. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Marsh?
Yes, just for my own clarity, and apologies if I've misunderstood. Will that include the business plan going forward? Yes.
The piece of work that's coming back to the Executive Committee is on those two pieces of work that the Council is initiating around the commissioning plan for leisure and also around the estates work, which encompasses both leisure and council assets. In terms of their business plan, that would be a paper that would go to their board. That wouldn't be something that would come to our council. However, through the piece of work on commissioning, members will be able to understand the ask that the council has of leisure, and it's then for them to go and deliver on that business plan.
Yeah, I'm perhaps wrongly. My thinking would be that the business plan would offer the context to the commissioning plan and would have hopefully quite a lot of crossover.
Councillor Mars, I hope that when the paper comes back in March, you'll be able to see the link between the ask of the Council in terms of how our priorities will link into what we're asking leisure to do. They will then deliver on those asks. So hopefully that update will give you the information you're expecting to see in terms of what leisure will be delivering and what our ask of them is.
Okay, Councillor. Can I approve that report and ask for a seconder, please?
I'll second it, Mary. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin. You can be excused, both of you. You're going to sign that, aren't you? Okay, thank you. I don't want to keep you to the whole meeting since you're very busy.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. The officers, can they also be excused? The officers that came for that item?
The officers that came for that item can also be excused. Thank you for your attendance. It's quite a big bit. Item 4, internal audit plan, and I've got Yvonne to speak to that. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Chair. So, as you said, this is the 25-26 internal audit plan, and it's round about this time of year that we come to the committee to ask for approval for our plan of work for the year that starts on the 1st of April. There's 3 elements to this report. There's an internal audit mandate and charter, there's an audit strategy, and then there's the proposed audit plan. Now, the first 2 of those are new items for the committee. And there, in relation to new standards that will apply from the 1st of April 25, the global internal audit standards, which will replace the public sector internal audit standards that the committee are familiar with references within papers to. The new standards make specific reference to those charged with governance, and within South Lanarkshire Council this is the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee, so it's got specific relevance to the work of the committee, and there's a separate report on the standards later on in the agenda just to take you through some of the key changes within those new standards. What I have had to do to comply with the standards is have a wee bit of a crossover. So where relevant in relation to the audit plan, I've also covered the internal audit mandate and charter within this paper. These changes are set out in section 4 and section 5, so the internal audit mandate and charter within section 4, and then the report moves on in section 5 to talk about the audit strategy. The mandate and charter is not completely different to the internal audit charter that we had before. It's roughly based on that, but it's certainly been expanded to reflect new requirements, and one of those is a mandate. And by a mandate, all the standards really mean by that is that the function is given a remit to carry out the audit plan and to operate within the authority. And one of the key parts about the mandate is the independence of the Internal Audit Service. The actual mandate and charter is attached to Appendix 2, and when I get to the end of the paper, one of the recommendations will be that the committee is asked to approve this. The Global Internal Audit Standards is, as they suggest, they're a single set of standards that apply to all internal audit functions. So we've had to have a wee bit of interpretation, firstly for the public sector and then also for local government. And to do that, we've been given an application note and a code of practice. So all of this forms part of our compliance with the standards. And I'll get into that in a wee bit more detail in a later paper that we have on this meeting's agenda. We've made a good start in terms of our compliance. We were already compliant with the public sector internal audit standards, so we have a good starting point with the new standards, but we do need to set aside some time in 25-26 just to work through that fully. One of the elements of the standard is that we're required to prepare a strategy, and the report's noting that although the broad aims are set out at 5.1 and there's a copy of the strategy at Appendix 3, this is an area where we need to do some more work. Section 6 of the report then takes you through the more kind of standard planning process, so it talks you around the capacity, the consultation process, the themes of the plan and also the broad content. So reflecting the overall audit strategy, having completed a planning exercise, having conducted a programme of consultation, the plan is attached at Appendix 4. The plan covers all resources, it reflects time to undertake routine and investigative work, and where relevant what we've done is we've linked the piece of work to an identified council top risk, and we've also prioritised assignments. So in a scenario where our time is restricted for one reason or another, we'll complete the assignments in the order in which we've indicated. So high means as an assignment that we would look to complete earlier on in the year. I think that's the main points within the report. So if I can just take the committee to the recommendations at 2.1, I'm asking that the revised internal audit mandate and charter is approved. I'm asking that you endorse the audit strategy, noting the fact that there's some further work to be done in this area and for it to be represented to the Audit Committee at a later meeting. And finally, that the proposed internal audit plan for 25-26 is approved to allow us to commence this on the 1st of April. Happy to take questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. Is there any questions to you, Yvonne, on that paper? No. Thank you. Can I move that paper's passed, and can I have a seconder?
I'll second, Mary. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin. Item 5A, South Lanarkshire Council Annual Audit Plan, and I've got John Boyd, Audit Director, to speak to that paper.
Hi, good morning, members. Can you hear me okay? apologies I can't be there in person this morning. Attached in the papers is our external audit plan for the year ended 31st of March 2025. Members will be familiar with the format and structure of our plan. This is the third year of my 5-year appointment as external auditor of the council. The plan itself covers the audit scope and responsibilities, both in relation to the audit of the financial statements, as well as our responsibilities in regards reporting around aspects of wider scope and best value. I'll just touch on some of the key aspects of the plan. In terms of the financial statements audit, probably the first area to draw the committee's attention to is in relation to page 6 and 7, which sets out our materiality. Essentially, any financial statements materiality, the auditor determines what would be considered to be material to the users of the accounts. So this is essentially where the transactions or balances, if they were misstated, could have a detrimental impact on the user of the accounts. And that's based on both professional judgment as well as considering industry norms. And you'll have seen in our plan, we set that at 2% of your expenditure, essentially focusing on what the key aspects of the use of the accounts are, which is essentially how the council spends its money. And we apply a threshold, and that really determines the scope and testing of our work. The other figure I'll just draw the committee's attention to is our reporting threshold, and that's set at 1.32 million. As you can imagine, the sheer scale of the value of the transactions and values that appear in the council's accounts, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to report on every item of misstatement or adjustment that we identify, and what we do is report to the committee any adjustments over and above 1.32 million. That's individually or cumulatively. So that really drives our financial statements audit. As part of our audit planning, we look to identify where there's a potential risk of misstatement in the accounts. So we take a risk-based approach to our audit work. This involves having discussions with management, reviewing your underlying risks and the types of transactions that the council enters into, and that really informs our overall risk assessment. What you'll see in Exhibit 2 within the pack, and that is outlined on pages 8 and 9, and going on to page 10, outlines those areas of increased risk that we've identified as part of our audit planning. So these are areas where, either required by auditing standards or through our own risk assessment, we've identified areas of increased risk, and it will have additional audit procedures as part of our financial statements audit work. We've included in there the risk of fraud through management override of controls. That's a presumed risk on any financial statements audit, where, given the position and responsibility that management have, there is an increased area of risk. So we perform specific audit procedures to mitigate that risk. The other areas are in relation to the valuation of property, plant and equipment. So given the value and the essentially the magnitude of the valuation within the financial statements, auditing standards requires to undertake additional audit procedures on areas of significant judgment and where there's a material impact on the accounts. So the valuation of the council's assets is a key aspect of our audit work, and our audit plan outlines our response to that risk. Similarly, the pension liability, or what has been a pension asset in recent years in the council's accounts, is an area of significant estimation and judgment, where the council employs a management expert in Hymans Robertson to undertake that valuation. And as auditors, we undertake additional audit procedures, including using our own actuarial expert in PwC to undertake an assessment of some of the key assumptions underpinning that, really to give us assurance that the valuation reflected in your accounts is free from material misstatement. In terms of just drawing the committee's attention to, we've included in there a response to group audit. This year has saw the introduction of our revised auditing standards on group audit engagements, and the council in its financial statements prepares group accounts, and this includes the council itself, South Lanarkshire and Culture Leisure, as well as other organisations including To Roots to Work, the IGIB and the Valuation Joint Board. So as part of our audit procedures, in accordance with the revised auditing standards, there's greater onus on myself as the appointed auditor of the group to engage in some instances with your group auditors. And we've outlined within our audit plan our proposed response to that. Again, that's based on the concept of what could have a material impact on the group accounts. If I just touch briefly on the wider scope responsibility. So as part of our annual audit in accordance with the Code of Audit Practice, as your auditor, I'm required to report on wider scope dimensions, not just on the financial statement, essentially looking at areas such as financial management, financial sustainability, vision, leadership and governance, and how the council uses its resources to improve outcomes. Similar to the financial statements audit, we take a risk-based approach, so we look to identify where there's areas of increased risk, and our audit plan outlines, as you would expect, the area of financial sustainability. Given the current challenges, both in terms of service demand pressures as well as funding pressures and inflationary pressures facing the council, we've included in there a focus on financial sustainability and the extent to which the council is focusing its resources on the council priorities, both in terms of the immediate term planning, in terms of setting your budget, but also, the short-term plan in terms of setting your budget, but that medium to longer term, looking at how the council looks to deliver a financial sustainable future. The final couple of areas we'll just touch on. We've included in our audit plan a detailed timeline. The key dates really included within there are where we intend to report to yourselves in September, and with a final sign-off by the end of September, in line with the statutory target dates. We've also got included in there some of the other areas of audit work that we undertake, including the certification of non-domestic rates return and housing benefits return. As part of our audit work this year, the Accounts Commission asks all local authority auditors to report in an area of a thematic theme. In previous years, we've had workforce planning as well as strategic leadership. For the year ended 31st March 2025, the area of focus is on innovation, and we'll be working with the council to look at how the council innovates and transforms its services as part of that service delivery and improving outcomes, but as well as ensuring a financial sustainable future. The final area is just in terms of in Exhibit 6 is our audit fee. So our audit fee is set centrally. You'll see there's a number of components within that. Essentially, the audit fee across the local government sector has seen an increase of 1.9%. With the inflationary pressures across audit services, as well as the increasing cost and just in terms of delivering audits, we've worked hard to try and minimise the increase in fees year on year, and we've kept essentially a sector limit of 1.9% across the local government, and that's been proposed in the audit fee. As your auditor, we have the opportunity to increase that fee up to 10% of the baseline fee if we consider there to be, significant areas of risk where there would be an increased level of audit work beyond that of a kind of standard local authority audit. We've not identified any areas of increased risk in the current financial year, so therefore proposed retaining it at the baseline fee set centrally. Just finally from me, we've outlined and included within our audit plan, just confirming our audit independence. We confirm that throughout the audit process, and we can also confirm that as part of our annual audit report. Myself and all members of the team remain independent of the council. That was really I know it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the annual audit plan, but happy to take any questions that members have.
Thank you, John. Any questions to John's report? No. I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Thank you, Colin. Report. That is noted, that report. We'll move on to item 5B, and I'm going to ask Amanda Bartley to speak to that report. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. I present to the committee for noting our annual audit plan for the 2024-25 external audit of the South Lanarkshire Council Charitable Trusts. This is presented as a separate output, having previously been included as part of the annual audit plan for the Council. The plan outlines the scope of our audit of the charitable trusts and our responsibilities, as shown on page 98 of your document pack. It also details the audit procedures we plan to undertake in response to the presumed risk of fraud due to management overriding of controls, as detailed on page 102. A couple of other areas to draw your attention to are our materiality levels, which are detailed on page 100, and the audit fee, which is on page 106. The table on page 105 sets out key dates for our audit. Please note there's an error in the copy of the plan which we issued to the committee. The dates in the last line of the table, which currently show the 12th of September 2025, should read the 30th of September 2025, in line with the date for the approval and signing of the audited accounts. A corrected version of the plan will be issued after this meeting. I'm happy to take any questions from the committee on our audit plan for the charitable trusts. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, for that report. Any questions to Amanda on the report? No. I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Colin. That report is moved. Item 6 is the Global Internal Audit Standards, and I'll go to Yvonne to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report on the new Global Internal Audit Standards, and apologies, I'm probably going to repeat myself because there's a wee bit of a crossover between the content of this plan and the 25-26 plan that came in an earlier item on the agenda. And if you're able to stay for the training session, unfortunately going to have to hear it for a third time. So I'll try and be as brief as possible in relation to this. So this is about introducing the new Global Internal Audit Standards to the committee, which apply from the 1st of April. It talks a lot about the Audit Committee and the roles. So it's really important that the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee understand the standards, what it's asking and what it's requiring. The intention is, as we bring papers to you, to remind you of your responsibilities and to give you a bit of guidance. So that will feature in all of the papers that come to the Audit Committee throughout the year. I think probably the thing to say first and foremost is that much of what we do is not changing. So much of what's in the public sector internal audit standards is replicated in the new global internal audit standards. So we're well placed in terms of our starting position. Along with the standards, as I previously mentioned, there's a couple of key documents. There's an application note, which we apply in the public sector, and then separately a code of practice. The paper at item 6 has an extract from the code of practice at Appendix 1. The reason that's been included is because that starts to talk about the role of the Audit Committee and the responsibilities. So we've pulled that extract out because it's got specific relevance. The standards are based around 15 core principles, and it groups these across 5 different headings or domains, as the standards call them. And section 4.6 of the report takes you through those 5 domains. In terms of compliance, it's the same process as for the public sector internal audit standards. So we self-assess our compliance for 4 out of 5 years, and for 1 out of 5 years we have an external assessor who comes in and assesses our level of compliance. We're required to report each year to the Audit Committee as to the outcome of those processes where we're assessing compliance. So that's whether we're doing it internally or externally. To try and summarise the main changes, they're set out at 4.9. And then for completeness, the report takes you back through the audit mandate, charter and audit strategy that was also covered in the audit plan report. The specific role of the Audit Committee is set out at 4.16, and the kind of key elements of that are that you provide a mandate to the Internal Audit Service for them to deliver throughout the year. But alongside that, there's some other elements that are talked about for the first time within standards. So it talks about a role for an audit committee that looks at encompassing support of the function, reviewing our activity and challenging our output. So there are some subtle changes within these standards, and my job will be to communicate those to you within the reports that I bring to help you to meet the requirements of the standards. As I said, we've got a short training session after this that I'll try and take you through the specifics of that in relation to the Audit Committee's role. But for the moment, in relation to this paper, I'm asking that you note requirements and responsibilities as set out in the new standards, application note and code of practice, and that this is applicable from the 1st of April. And again, happy to take questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. Any questions to Yvonne on that report? No? Thank you. I'll move that report and look forward to the training following this meeting. Colin,
Yeah,
can I?
I'll second
Thank
it.
you. I'll move on to item 7, which is the internal audit activity 24th of January 2025. And Yvonne again to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. So this activity report covers 1st of November 24 through to 24th of January 25. In terms of progress, it's stating that 24th of January, 98% of the plan was in progress. We've now started the remaining assignments, so all of the plan is in progress. In terms of the status of that plan, 58% of it is complete and 40% work in progress, and we've got a plan in place to allow us to conclude all assignments by the end of April. As with normal within these activity reports, Appendix 1, we list all the assignments we completed in the period. So that was 9 in relation to South Lanarkshire Council and 2 for external clients. And we've noted our key performance indicators at Appendix 2. Appendix 3 takes the committee through one of the more significant assignments and provides you with the key messages. So it takes you through the audit work that we undertook in relation to pupil equity funding, where we looked at governance arrangements within a sample of schools. In terms of our findings, they're set out at the foot of page 89, so it takes you through the various scope areas of the audit. So we looked at guidance, where we found that local guidance was in place, albeit we made some minor recommendations as to where this could be strengthened. In terms of planning, we could see that there were school improvement plans in place. The only observation was being around aligning spend with outcomes and maybe making that link clearer. In terms of approval of PES spend, broadly backup information was available within schools to support their spend, but there was a reminder there around the audit trail where there were some gaps. In relation to monitoring spend outcomes and reporting to stakeholders, again we found that schools were monitoring their spend and liaising with education resources. We could see tracking was in place, but again, we were making the observation around being able to track the specific interventions and how that actually contributed to improvement, and we thought that could potentially be clearer. So there was an action plan agreed with Education Resources that captured those improvement points. In terms of the overall opinion, we're saying that we had a reasonable level of assurance and that the expected governance controls were in place, so we could see that the funds were being well managed. But we reflected on the fact that there were some improvement actions, albeit in most cases fairly minor, that would help Education Resources to strengthen their guidance, improve audit trail, and improve the correlation between financial and strategic plans. That concludes this paper. So in terms of the recommendations, I'm asking that progress is noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. I just have one to welcome, the PEF funds. I think that's to be welcomed in all the schools. I know in my area it's well received and well spent. I think the action plan that you've picked up is excellent because that's helping head teachers as well. That wee anomaly was going on there, so that's good that we picked it up. And also a shout out for the participatory budgeting. We've got wee politicians in the meeting when I see them performing and how they've decided to come up with the spend on participatory budgeting. It's amazing how they arrive at their answers. So watch out any councillors here because they're ready to come and take their place. But thank you for that report. I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Colin. So that's item 7. Item 8 is the fraud statistics 6-monthly update, and Yvonne again to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. So again, a routine report that comes to the committee. This covers the fraud statistics for the 6-month period to 30th September 2024. The main information sits within the tables. It starts on page 92 at 4.3. The first one, the fraud caseload, showing that 27 new cases were reported in the in the 6-month period, and 13 were closed. Table 2 then takes you through the 13 that were closed and indicates that 10 of those 13 were founded. And the final table at the top of page 93 tells you of the 10 founded, they were all external to the council. Aside from those statistics, the only other data that's not included within the statistics is set out at 4.5, and that's in relation to DWP investigations. There are 35 of those ongoing, so they are DWP instructed investigations with a potential value of around 50,000. That's not included in those figures. If fraud is proven or an overpayment is identified, it will be returned to the council and will follow our normal debt recovery procedures. That covers the main points within this report, and I'm asking that the committee note the content. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. Can I ask, does anyone get any points to Yvonne on that report? No? I'll move that report, and can I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Colin. Next item is item 9, Performance and Review Scrutiny Forum, the annual update. And Tom, it's yourself to speak to that report.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, give Yvonne a wee break, probably just quite a short break, because this is a very straightforward report. This is an annual report I bring to this committee, which brings you a summary of those reports that were considered by the Performance and Review Scrutiny Forum in the previous calendar year. The list of those reports is there for you in the table at 4.1, which is pages 133 on to 134 in your papers. And you'll see the list is under 3 categories. There are performance management, best value and improvement. The recommendation is to note the contents of this report, but as ever, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions to Tom on that report? No? I'll move that report, and can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And Item 10, forward programme for future meetings. Elizabeth Ann, it's yourself.
Thanks, Chair. This is a standard report that comes to each meeting of this committee, and the background is set out at section 3 of the report. The purpose of the report is to advise members of the forward programme for the meeting of this committee, and in the case of this report, it takes us up to the 10th of March 2026, and that's detailed at the appendix on page 139 of your pack. The purpose is also to invite members to suggest topics for inclusion in the committee's forward programme. The report is for noting, and if I just take the committee back to the recommendation at 2.1, and that's to note the forward programme. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Elizabeth Ann. Can I move that report? Oh, sorry, is anyone questions to that report? Can I move that report? And can I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I don't have any other items for this meeting. I suggest that we have a 10-minute break before we go into the training session. Thank you. I'll see you back in 10 minutes.